Good morning. Before we begin, let me introduce myself. I'm the Reverend Philip Faulkner. I am the officiant at this morning's service. James, I'll have to take you to task a little bit. I apologize I did not get the memo as I look out around the sea of green, or I would probably have worn something very similar. Just bear with me, please. Hear now these opening anthems. I am the resurrection and the life, saith the Lord. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. And whosoever liveth and believeth in me shall never die, but have everlasting life. I know that my Redeemer liveth, and that he shall stand at the latter day upon the earth. And though this body be destroyed, yet shall I see God, whom I shall see for myself, and mine eyes shall behold, and not as a stranger. For none of us liveth unto himself, and no man dieth unto himself. Whether we live therefore or die, we are the Lord's. Blessed are the dead who die in the Lord, even so saith the Spirit, for they shall rest from their labors. Let us pray. O God, whose mercies cannot be numbered, accept our prayers on behalf of thy servant Michael, and grant him an entrance into the land of light and joy, in the fellowship of thy saints, through Jesus Christ our Lord, who liveth and reigneth with thee in the Holy Spirit, one God, both now and forevermore. Amen. Michael's best and longest friend has chosen to honor Michael with these heartfelt words.
There's a lot of people here. Yeah, me too. So I'm basically going to read this because it took a long time to write. So if I'm not looking at you, it's only because of this. However, second speech, we're going to have some fun. Anyway, hello. For those who don't know me, my name is James Simpson, and Michael and I have been friends since September of 1984. That's over 4 decades of friendship. Something I will always be grateful for. Over those years, I had the privilege of knowing Michael not just as a friend, but as someone who truly enriched my life in ways both big and small. You okay, little one? You need a Green Lantern ring is what you need. Then you can float around. Michael Foster was a man who loved the simple, meaningful things in life: comics, good food, and most of all, his friends. He was born in Birmingham, Alabama, though if you knew him, you probably didn't hear much about it. That was just the beginning of his story. Growing up in the Air Force family, Michael had the opportunity to travel the world, living in places like Germany and Japan. Those experiences gave him a unique perspective and a quite appreciation for the life that stayed with him. Michael had a deep love for comics. He can go on and on about the origin stories of just about every DC Marvel character you can think of, and somehow he made it interesting every single time. But his favorite, without a doubt, was, can anyone guess? Green Lantern. And in many ways, Green Lantern wasn't just his favorite character. It was something that defined how Michael lived his life. The idea of using willpower to overcome fear and using that power to help and protect others. That was Michael. He didn't just wear a ring replica, but he showed that same strength in how he cared for people around him. He looked out for his friends, he showed up when it mattered, and he did what he could to make life better for others. He also loved food, but more than anything, he loved sharing it. Sitting down for a meal with Michael meant laughter, stories, and connection. It wasn't just about eating, it was about being together. But what stood out most about Michael was how much he valued his friends. He had a way of making you feel welcome, that you belonged. He listened, he showed up, he cared. And I can say from personal experience, he was a true, loyal, and genuine friend. It is hard to put into words what it means to lose someone like Michael after so many years. But there's a space now that can't be filled. But I also know how fortunate I am to have him in my life for so long. I actually did big font so I can read this. As we remember Michael, let's carry forward with the spirit he lived by, facing life with strength, caring for one another, and doing what we can to help and protect the people around us. Michael, thank you for your friendship. You will be deeply missed, but never forgotten. Thank you.
So heavy I hit the floor, my heart is shaking and torn. Can't catch my breath, don't know what to feel. My tears are starting to burn. I scream, it wasn't your turn. I can't believe it, this can't be real. Gone too soon, my friend. I know you're dancing with angels on the wind. It's not the end until I reach forever and we're together. You will always be gone too soon. A heart with love left to give, a soul with life left to live, so full of color, not one defined you. I wish I had one more day, so much that I wanna say, so much that I didn't take the time to. Gone too soon, my friend. I know you're dancing with angels on the wind. It's not the end until I reach forever and we're together. You will always be gone too soon. Gone too soon. Still can't believe that it's true. Still can't believe it's you. Gone too soon, my friend. I know you're dancing with angels on the wind. It's not the end until I reach forever and we're together. You will always be gone too soon. Gone too soon. Gone too soon.
As you will note around the table here and off to the side are some, of course, is Michael's urn here. Also are some flasks, a quite large one over there as well. James, I heard in your voice just a little bit of nerves and emotions in there, which are rightfully so. Had I known it was going to be like that, I'd probably brought you an additional flask, just to kind of soothe your nerves a little bit. At times of deep sorrow, sometimes the ancient words of Scripture can offer some comfort. The well-known words of the 23rd Psalm are often quoted during services such as these. However, knowing the story behind the poetry makes it even more powerful. According to tradition, the words of gratitude were said to be written by David, the king of Israel. But at this time of his life, David was not the powerful ruler sitting behind the throne. He was on the run, being chased by enemies, hiding in a cave, afraid for his life. He was in a place he'd never been before. Sitting here, you are in a place you've never been before. So engulfed by sadness and loss, let these words speak to your heart in a new way. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Whenever we lose a person dear to us, be he family or friend, a person who has played a significant role in our lives, we are flooded with all types of emotions. The first emotion we experience is sadness. Sometimes the love is no longer present with us, and no matter what we do, we can't change that fact. We might also feel a sense of guilt. None of us has a perfect relationship with a loved one. When that person passes on to his or her eternal life, we may feel guilty about some of the things we said or did to him or her, or the time when we lost our temper. Often we're left with the feeling that we did not let Michael know just how much he was loved. We might also feel a bit angry at God for having taken him from us. We may wonder why God has done this to us. We may ask God, why is he inflicting so much pain upon us? Perhaps our anger is made worse by the feeling that it is not right or proper to feel anger towards God. So we try to suppress our feelings. But no matter how hard we try to do that, our anger is still there. All of these emotions and feelings are normal and part of our grieving process. But we as Christians believe that people like Michael are with Jesus. For him, life has merely changed. It has not ended. He is now with Jesus, and he is now enjoying the presence of family and friends who have preceded him in death. While we are truly saddened over the passing from this life of Michael, our faith reassures us that the sadness that we are now experiencing will, in time, be not just changed, but it will be transformed into joy, because Michael, like Jesus, has died, but he has died into resurrection. Even now, as we continue to celebrate his life, he is enjoying the fullness of God's presence and will continue to enjoy that fullness forever. And now, James will come once again to share his memories, and I think he said a little bit of fun with this one, right? Come on.
So, obviously, Michael and I have been friends for a very long time, so I'm going to give some readings from a certain point of view. So, we grew up as Air Force brats. For those who do not know what an Air Force brat is, we move around every 4 years. So, we don't get to make friends. So, every time we make a friend, 4 years later, you're getting stationed somewhere else. So, it's an anomaly for a lot of people when you can meet somebody who's also a military brat that you can stay friends with for so long. So I met Michael after moving from Alaska to Florida. We were trying to rent his house. So me and my sister are from Alaska. We moved down, and they were living on Starfish Road. And they had this wonderful little house, and we tried to rent. When I got there, Michael was there, Linda was there, and obviously Donna and Steve. And so while the parents talked, I got to talk with Michael. And he was playing with action figures. Now in Alaska, we don't get a whole lot of toys up in Alaska because everything is 4 to 6 weeks for delivery. This is 70s and 80s. So he had all the action figures that I've ever wanted. And one of them that he had was the Secret Wars Iron Man. So my background is I love Iron Man. That's been my go-to character since the 70s. That's been my comic book character. His has been Green Lantern. They didn't have a whole lot of Green Lantern action figures at that point. So he got the Secret Wars collection, Marvel, Captain America and all that. So he was playing with this Iron Man. I'm like, oh, I love Iron Man. So we basically bonded right away. And we got to talking a little bit, and then, of course, our parents decided not to rent the house for whatever reason. And I found out he went to the same school I did, Max Bruner Junior High School. And so then he moved to Japan. Then I was stuck with Simon. Anyway, I had Simon. I had so I got to hang out with Simon, who is also a very close friend of mine. But I was on the bus, and Michael showed up. I was like, wait, didn't I see you like 4 years ago? He's like, yeah, we moved back. Usually you don't move back to the area when you're stationed. You just keep, every 4 years you go to someplace differently. And on the bus, we'd ride together and we'd talk about our favorite comic book characters. And even in school, he was a grade older than me. So, when I was in ninth, he was in 10th. Because he's 18 whatever. He's a year and a half older than me. So, we would talk about, action figures and comic books and whatnot. And then we would meet up at a place called Collector's Corner, which was a comic book store that we would visit frequently. We would also go to our house, and we would write stories about Star Trek. That was a big thing. We would get together and we would build Star Trek episodes, because this is before Next Generation. So Michael played Captain Kirk, which you can kind of see in some of the videos. Apparently, I was Spock for some reason, and my sister was Uhura. We had a whole crew of what we did for these different types of stories. And we're growing up, so this is 88, 89, 90. And then he got a job at Wendy's. He was working at Wendy's. He did the day shift, and then he got me a job at Wendy's, so I was doing night shift. And then later on, we started working at a place called Food World. It's like a Kroger or Publix. It's just a food chain. And we would stock shelves. His aisle was the fragile, the glasses, the dressings and relish and stuff of that nature. Because he was fast and he was meticulous. He could get up on the shelf. I got the dog food aisle because I weighed 80 pounds and I'm carrying 40-pound bags of dog food and cat litter. So that's what I had to do. But Michael was so fast and so meticulous. He would, get his row done, and then me begrudgingly, carrying all these bags and throwing cans up and getting hit in the face with cans, he would, come and help us. And after everyone's done with their aisle, they would come help the other people. Well, there was aisle 9. Aisle 9 was the seasonal. So it had charcoal and lighter fluid and air fresheners and things like that. And I was stacking on top of the shelf, and there was a box of Strike Anywhere matches. And I'm like, what does it mean, strike anywhere? So is it just to pop the tip off? I can just tell you. He goes, no, you can actually light it off anywhere. So I threw the box on the ground. Nothing happened. I says, well, you should have done it. He goes, that's not how you do it. So he kicks the box, and as he kicks the box, it catches on fire through the air and lands on the charcoal briquettes. I'm like, well, he got it to strike anywhere, didn't he? So we put that out, smoke's in there, we get yelled at. But another thing that we would do after work is back when we would get paper checks. So sometimes the cashier would cash our checks for us. And the biggest thing that we would do was we would go to a place called TBS Comics. It was a new place where Collector's Corner was more about baseball cards and whatnot. TBS was all about comics. So we would get off of work, and we worked 11 to 7 shifts, so 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. And we would get our checks, and we would wait till 10 o'clock to get to Tuesday to go see Rose at TBS Comics. And, that was the thing. He would bag and board all the comics, and he would help bag and board the comics while reading his other comics inside TBS Comics. And I would just take the comics and bag and board and close it. He's like, you're not going to read it? I'm like, no. He's like, why not? So when I retire, all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna paint miniatures, because I was gonna read comics, and I was gonna play video games. That's my retirement plan. And he's like, well, you won't know what the story is. I'm like, is it going to change? The stories are gonna be the exact same. And then Michael and I did, wait a minute, Stephanie? Where's Stephanie? How old are you? Hang on, I gotta not tell some certain stories. That one. Okay, I'll skip a few. So, what we had was, Stephanie came and visited us when we were, came to visit I had a child born in June. And she came when she was 15. And she's like, could you tell me stories about Uncle Michael? And I said, yes. And as I'm regaling these tales of Uncle Michael, I'm like, wait a minute, how old are you? She's like 15. I'm like, realizing what I should not be telling her. I'm like, okay, let's not mention these things about your uncle. But what I can tell you is certain things like one time there's this place called Miracle Strip in Fort Walton where we grew up at. It's in Florida. It's lower Alabama. It's a hellhole. The speed limit changed a lot. So like every 50 feet, it was like 45, 35, 25, 5, 10, 15. And you only go like 200 yards, and it changed 6 times. So we get pulled over. Well, he's driving, and we get pulled over. And the cop goes, do you know how fast you were going? And Michael goes, no. The cop looks at me. Do you know how fast he was going? I says, no, officer. I close my eyes when he drives. So he came back, and he goes, I'm going to let you off with a warning. Your friend's funny. I says, okay, cool. So we did other things together. Sean McMasters is here. So Sean had a station wagon, a sedan. And so it's 4-door. Michael would sit in the front passenger seat. Sean would obviously drive. And we would go cruising. This was during spring break. We would go to Panama City. Now, what you don't understand is at the time in the late 80s and early 90s, car stereos was the rage. I mean, I even had an 18-inch kicker in a 280Z. Don't do that, you'll crack your windshield. However, Sean had this massive speaker box he put in the back seat. So he's like, hey, let's go to Panama City and cruise. I'm like, okay, where do I sit? So I'm laying on the back of this box, and it's like 55 miles to get to Panama City. And then we put on these little tint glasses, whatever. It was a rage back then, like where you tint your headlights. Here it is at dark, we're playing this. And then I'll tell you this one, Stephanie. So anyway, Michael and Simon are over at the house. And we had been drinking, I swear it was rubbing alcohol, but it was called Brunette's Vodka, which it was rubbing alcohol. And I'm like, it's late. I could go see a girl. He's like, no, you don't. I'm like, why? You've been drinking. Technically, that's true, but I don't drink a lot. Michael and Simon, on the other hand, had a little bit too much. And then they decided to tell me what they're going to do to me if I try to drive. So as you can see, Michael's a big boy. So Simon's telling what he's going to do to me. Michael's telling what he's going to do to me. And I'm sitting there going like, I grab my keys, I walk out. I get in my car. I start my car. All of a sudden, I see Michael come flying over the chain link fence, landing on my hood. He's like, where are you going? I go, apparently nowhere. You understand, the board is probably 225, 250, flying over a 3-foot chain link fence, landing on the hood of my car. Regardless, he was protecting me. We also used to go to something called the Rocky Horror Picture Show. So every Saturday, some of us would perform. My sister was a performer. And after the Rocky Horror Picture Show, a lot of people wanted to go hang out with us. So we would tell them, yeah, we're going to go to the Waffle House at Brooks Bridge. Of course, we would not go to the Waffle House at Brooks Bridge. We would go someplace completely different because we didn't want the newbies to hang around us. And we used to go to IHOP. That was usually our go-to place. And when I was there, we noticed that I was flipping through, and I was like, hey, at 55, we get a discount. He's like, oh. So we were all excited. I was like, you know what, when we're 55, we're going to go to IHOP. So another one, who remembers White Sands Bowling Center? Okay, we got thrown out of White Sands Bowling Center. Has anyone ever seen the Flintstones? When Fred would throw the ball, and it would basically hover across the lane and then hit the pins? Michael didn't do that. He catapulted. The ball never hit the ground, okay? He would throw it ball, and then hit the pins and go scattering. We got thrown out because he hit a ceiling tile. This is a 16-pound ball. He's lobbing. I was like, oh, my God. So other things that there's some original art right here. So we decided Fort Walton wasn't working really out for us. For us, it wasn't a city, and we wanted to do more with our lives. So we went to, it was called Okaloosa Walton Community College, or I call it Correctional College. So we would go there, and we just wanted to start, bettering ourselves, not just sitting around talking about comics all the time. And we actually tried to work on our own comic. We also tried to work on our own comic. And so Michael was writing the stories. We had an artist, and then I was going to be the person who manufactures it. But I saw over time, in '93 now, I saw no future in Fort Walton, at least for me. Okay, it just wasn't a place for me. So I moved. I came to Atlanta to go to college. And I moved here in basically '94. And of all people I did not expect here, there was a guy who actually hired me at one of my first professional companies, a place called Tessa Entry Systems. So, and I was like, oh, this place is really nice. It allowed me to be creative, and I would be putting door handles together, and I was working with software, and I realizing I can get into any hotel, any room I want. I was like, should I use that for good or evil? I chose good. But while I was there, we were growing as a company, and we needed more people. And I was like, Michael would be perfect for this job. So in '95, when the opening came, the guy, he interviewed Michael on a Monday. And Michael had no technical experience. So, we worked Wendy's and construction and at stocking shelves. And I was like, okay, Michael just wasn't there. He interviewed him, and he's like, well, I'm gonna finish this week out looking at different people. Okay. So Michael hangs around, goes to Stone Mountain, just checks out Atlanta. And Friday, he's like, James, what do you think about Michael? Would he be a good candidate? I said, absolutely. I bet my life on it. So anyway, he got hired. Now, the guy who was a manager of Tessa, it's really hard with you here. He was very strict. And after about 3 months, he made an announcement to the tech support. He's like, Michael was the best hire he's ever done in this company. I was like, holy crap. So I left the company. Can't compete with Michael. So, yeah, let's see here. Oh, that's right, because of Stephanie, I can't say this. Yeah, the best person, I see. So anyway, Michael was very good at problem solving. So we get a hotel lock, and he'd flip it over. He loved that sonic screwdriver. I mean, for him, that was a sonic screwdriver. You will say, perfect timing. I timed that right. But he would get that little light and pull out those 6 screws, pull off the back of the HT24, pop the new clutch in there, check it out and everything. He was a master at it, and he was very fast, and he was very meticulous. And the worst thing is you don't want to send the product back to a customer for an RMA and it not work. But no, he was master at that. So in '95, we also started going to something called Dragon Con, which you may see some pictures of him attending Dragon Con. That was Michael's element. I mean, one thing is just me and my family, my close friends, Sean, my sister, and Simon, and whatnot. Gloria. But now here was a convention of all his people, and he loved Dragon Con. He would literally save every penny he had just for that Dragon Con experience. So we lived together for a few years on North Druid Hills, and we used to play a lot of first-person shooter games. And because of Tessa, I got a hold of an Ethernet system that allowed cabling system to allow us to do it. Lantastic was it? So we would actually be able to play first-person shooters locally. This is kind of pre-internet, 94. Internet kind of started in 92, 94. So we would play first-person shooters. He would always annihilate me. There was a game called Hexen, which he didn't tell me any of the secret parts of it. And here I am running around, and all of a sudden I see feathers. I'm like, why am I seeing feathers? And I realized he kept turning me into a duck. So I'm like, okay. The only ever game we played a lot of games together. And the only game I was finally able to beat him on was Age of Empires. And that's only because he sneezed and wasn't paying attention, and I ran over and got his tribe. So I had to cheat, and I had to beat him. So we lived together, playing turning me and checking his thing, AFC. So anyway, things that I would do, I had a 5-foot Wile E. Coyote that I won at a Renaissance festival. So I can't remember where I got it from. So what I would do is I'd dress it up in a T-shirt and a baseball cap and black gloves, Simpsons black gloves, you get it. Anyway, I would sneak into his room when he's sleeping and put it next to him and have it like this. And then I go back to my room. James! Oh, God. So we would pull pranks on each other. Another one was one time he came. This is kind of out of order. He was coming home from work because I was going to college at the time. And I said I had left Tessa. And I heard the key in the door, and the door opens this way. So the door is open. I step back. The door opened. The lights off. I grabbed his shoulder. He went through the roof. And then I realized, should I really be doing that to a 300-pound, 6'2" man? And I'm 9,500 pounds at the time, realizing, I probably am going to have a very bad day today. So I told him, Michael, it's me. He's like, never do it again. I said, I promise. Another one was my mother would make, they're called wedding cookies, Russian cookie balls. Essentially, they are like a dough, and it's like got chocolate chips into them, and white. It's like a white sugary powder on it. So my mother sent them to me, and I knew Michael liked them too. And he's like, "Is that a box from your mother?" No. I go to my room. I put 4 or 5 in my mouth. James, yeah, what you doing in your room? I don't want to tell you. I opened the door, and I swallowed. I got all the cookie. And apparently, he's like, "Wait!" Apparently, my lips have white powder all over it. I was like, "It's cocaine, I swear." He's like, "No, it's cookie balls." So, we would spend a lot of time together going to we would do rollerblading, for those who remember rollerblading. We'd go to Stone Mountain and do rollerblading. That was a big thing. We'd go hiking. We'd go up and down Stone Mountain. I think there's actually a couple pictures. I think there's a picture of me and him in jeans walking up Stone Mountain. Then around that time, he was introduced to the comic company. As I mentioned, we had Collector's Corner, we had TBS Comics, and the comic company, which was located down the street from our house. And there he met a lot of people. And once again, he met, let's see here, he met Ken, Keith, Brian, and Walter, and a whole host of other people. That was his niche. That was his crew. He loved to talk about comics. So in about 97, I bought a house. And then Michael had to go live on his own. And I'm like, how is he going to do it by himself? I had nothing to worry about. He loved wrestling, so he'd go to pay-per-views with his friends. He'd do trivia for those who did trivia with him. And we would also play Dungeons and Dragons. A couple times he would come over to my house, and we would play Star Trek Uno all night, because every time one of us won, the other one only had 1 point, and you need 500 to be kicked out. So we spent 14 hours playing Star Trek Uno. And so at some point, I actually had to leave the country I had to go work outside the country for about 18 months. And I had a cat called Professor. And he took care of my cat for me for 18 months. You have to understand, Michael had a waterbed. He is flirting with disaster having a cat whose nails were never cut. Okay? So when I came back, I needed a place to live, and he gave me his couch. So I got to live on his couch for a little while. And then after that, I had gotten married, and my wife and I, we would go for motorcycle rides. And this was before GPS. We had TomToms. So she would have the TomTom in her coat pocket, and because we're on the motorcycle, she'd be behind me, and she'd put the TomTom on my back, and basically she'd tap my shoulders to get back home. But we would just get on the motorcycle and just purposely go get lost around here. So one time we go to Michael, just go visit Michael. It just happened to be on our navigation thing that we did. And that's basically kind of the first time you got to talk to Sandra. Now, my wife is from Central America, and she mainly spoke Spanish. You mainly spoke Spanish, but you were learning English. See? Todo bien? So she comes in there, and she's like, she sees Michael's background. She sees Michael's screen, and she wants to be friendly with him. And she's like, "Oh, you like superheroes?" I'm in the bathroom, and he is going 100 miles an hour trying to explain every single character on his screen. And it's like the Justice League and all the enemies, okay? I'm in there, I am dying laughing on the floor. And I know she's understanding 3%, but that was his thing. He loved to talk to people about subjects he loved, and he loved comic books and comic book characters. He went into so much detail so fast. And then, obviously, superhero movies started coming back out. Like I mentioned, my favorite was Iron Man, which came out in 2008. And he saw the movie, and we went and saw the movie together. And after that, he's like, "What'd you think?" I said, "Except for the last part." I said, "But I'm okay with it. That was a great movie." Then, of course, in 2011, we saw Green Lantern together. And I was like, "I'm sorry." But then later on, we started playing Dungeons and Dragons with the people at the comic book company. And he was always a ranger. He was always protecting the party. We would visit different cities together. So we got to go see a guy named Larry Elmore, which I think is in what timing is everything. And so I needed I was getting a printer from Larry, so I needed Michael. He's like, "Yeah, I'll come help." So while there, once again, Michael's thinking of someone else. So he's there with a world-famous Dungeons and Dragons artist, and the only thing he wants to get drawn is something for our friend Ken. And then he was like, "Should we screw with him or not?" I was like, "Absolutely screw with Ken." And then at DragonCon, he would always buy these 8x10 pictures and get them signed for his sister, like the Hickey from Kinnicky. He would have all these different signings. Another time, the Xbox Series X came out, and there was a way to go get one if you sit in line. So we got in line at 9 p.m. The store opens at 10 o'clock the next day. It's 55 degrees. He's in shorts. And we sat out there talking with everybody, just having a good time. And he only stood in line for a friend, Walter, to get an Xbox. He wasn't getting it. He was just there. So, and then he would start doing walks, and my favorite vehicle of all time is a snowspeeder from Empire Strikes Back. So every time he would find one, he would buy it. He's like, "If you see Green Lantern, buy me some Green Lantern stuff." There's a lot more Green Lanterns than a snowspeeder. So in December of 2023, I was in the room at the hospital, and they told me he has cancer. I was with them. And first thing they asked was, "When was your last colonoscopy?" And he said he's never had one. And I had some choice words with him. So we I'm analytical, engineering. I did the math, had an idea what things are going to be. So I knew I had a time limit. So I said, "Hey, what do you want to do? You got some time. Obviously, I'm hoping for you for the best, but I knew I had time." So he wanted to go meet Weird Al. So my sister gets VIP tickets in Las Vegas, of all places, to go see Weird Al. And we got really pretty good seats, but we're sitting like there's a tier of seats, and then there's a old walkway to go back and forth, and then there's another tier. And we're watching Weird Al play tacky. And he's singing, and he's talking into the camera, and he's walking. And he's walking backstage. I said, "That's kind of cool." And then we got to a point, something sounds off. It's like we're hearing doubleness. And sure enough, like 10 feet from us, he peers out of the side and is like singing right at Michael. The song, we're like, "What just happened?" Like you could almost reach over and touch Weird Al. And Ann goes, "What song do you want to hear?" And he's like, "What was it?" One More Minute. And the next song he plays is One More Minute. So Ann and Michael are singing, and I'm like, I don't know the words, but I'll fake it. So, and so then I do a lot of conventions, and one of the ones I go to is Dungeons & Dragons creator from Gary Gygax, and Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. And we got to take Michael out there. He got to go meet all the legendary artists that helped create Dungeons & Dragons. And then obviously the last Dragon Con, he got to finally meet and sit with William Shatner, which I think is maybe in one of these. I'm not sure. Of course, I didn't time it perfectly on that one. So, anyway, we played Dungeons & Dragons. We also played Starfinder, and the latest one we were playing is Cyberpunk. But because I kept having to leave the country, because in his chemo, because of his compromised immune system, we had to wait 3 weeks every time I left the country. So we didn't get to play as often as we wanted. So we got to play finally Cyberpunk, which is what I grew up playing in the late 80s. So, and we're in a position, and of course the party's basically screwed. And he's like, I go this. I was like, why didn't we think of that? And he's, once again, saves the party. But when I picked him up from his apartment to take him to go play Cyberpunk at Ken's house, he's like, hey, I got a present for you. I said, okay. He gives me this bag. And he said, don't look into it. Okay. Of course, I looked into it. It's a Green Lantern. Why do I care? So anyway, we get to Ken's house. We're all playing Cyberpunk. And after that, he's like, well, you can open your present now. So I open it. I was like, thanks for the Green Lantern. And he's like, oh, I got you the wrong one. So we get back to his apartment, and he's like, look over here. And I'm looking down this hallway, and I'm like, what am I looking for? He's like, you'll know it when you see it. So what it is, it's the 40th anniversary of the Iron Man that I met him 42 years ago. So his last thing he gave me was the first thing I ever saw him with. So anyway, that was hard. And he had to go into the hospital. He wasn't doing well. So he was basically kept losing fluids. He was dehydrated a lot. And he goes, hey, things are, my liver's basically failed, and I don't have much time. I says, okay. So I says, do you want to, I'm trying to make preparations now. Now I know I'm in emergency mode. I got to get everything done. So I'm helping Linda. We get the power of attorney. We get everything set up and ready to go. And then I says, what do you want to do? He's like, well, I don't want to be in the hospital. Fine. Where do you want to go? Ken's house. Fine. So we make that happen. And, so he's on a hospice, essentially. And so he's there. And he goes, I'm sorry. I'm not going to do the IHOP trip with you. I said, hey, it's okay. It's okay. Linda goes, I'll go with you. I'm like, okay, fine. Because obviously I'd known her just as long. So the last thing I told him was, I loved you. He says, I love you too. I'll be right here. And he was. When I got back from my trip, he was there. And he was gone. So anyway, to land on a good note, so he's there, and seeing your best friend not moving, not breathing. It's hard. So anyway, the funeral people come over, or I guess they're called, I don't know what they're called, but I don't know why in my head I was expecting a hearse. And then I realized, looking through all my life, I have never seen a hearse pull up to a person's house, ever. So I'm like, is it an ambulance? How does a person get removed out of here? And the two people came in, this tiny girl, she must have been 4 foot tall. and a guy who was relatively built. And I'm like, they're not picking up Michael. Michael's a big boy. So they asked for mine and Ken's help. So we're taking him out of Ken's house. And sure enough, they put him in the back of a Honda Odyssey. So for those who don't know, the reference to Deadpool and Wolverine. So I had to put Michael in a Honda Odyssey. And that made me smile, and that made me happy going, he is going off, literally with a bang. So anyway, I don't know, we're going to try and time this well, but as I mentioned, his favorite character is Green Lantern, with mine being Iron Man. Michael actually was on, when the Green Lantern movie came out, there was trailers for it, and there was a bunch of people that would say the oath, okay? And he was actually featured in one of those trailers before the movie. So if you go back and look through YouTube, you can see trailers for the Green Lantern movie, and sure enough, there's Michael doing the oath. So one of the reasons you all, remember I'm not Southern, so if you all may have a Green Lantern ring, it's due to I want to recite the oath. So anyway, if everybody would look at this sign. Yeah. And what? Oh, even better. Perfect timing. So I can start us off, but I need to be like looking at this. Oh, I'm sorry, it's right in front of me. Duh. Okay. Everybody? You both I don't have a ring. Could someone grab me a ring, please? Throw one at me. Thank you very much. Okay. Okay, everybody. I guess we'll do it at Michael here. Ready? In brightest day, in blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power, Green Lantern's light. Thank you all very much. Is that how you do it? I did? Cool. Did anyone else want to come up and say anything? Anyone else? Come on up, Michael. There you go.
Thanks, sir. Hi, I'm Mike Johnson. I'm Ann's husband. I am not a lifelong friend of Mike's, but I sort of am. I've spent high school all the way through, even till recently, sort of dancing around the edge of Mike's life. I knew of Simon, I knew of Ann, I knew of, whatever. And Mike's love for Ann. But anyway, no, whatever. Mike, when James was talking about, Mike being a ranger, Mike helping people, was that really my introduction. I mean, I met Mike a few times. Like I said, I've been over to your house like maybe twice or something and hung out or whatever. But it was Dragon Con was where I saw, I think I understood Mike for the first time. Mike was a steward of stories. He gathered them in. He wanted to find what happened. What was the, sorry, composure. By keeping track of the stories, by knowing what's going on, he was able to seek out, he was like a scout, like a ranger. He would go out and find stories that he'd never read before, just so he could find out what happened. And as an adult, I remember I brought an employee of mine, a guy named Nathan. We stayed in a hotel room with Mike and kind of hung out with him at Dragon Con. I'd been to Dragon Con when it was much smaller. Nathan had never been. I'd never been when it was so huge. And Mike guided us through the experience. He curated all these. You'd walk through and you'd see somebody in a crazy cosplay, and I'd be, I have no idea what that one is. I mean, I knew a lot of stuff, but it would be something obscure, and he would go, "Oh, that's this very specific manga that's loved by this other group and whatever, and it's got a whole following." He would, even if he didn't care about it, he would still spend the time to learn about it and understand it and know that these people's lives were enriched by these stories. And so whatever it was that you loved, he wanted to understand you through the lens of the stories that you loved. Sorry. We would go to the cosplay things, and he would see something off, and he would move through, and if nobody's been to Dragon Con, it is a sea of people at all times. And Mike's a big guy, and he would move through the crowd like a battleship. And they would just sort of part because he was that big. We would use him as a waypoint. If it was, okay, it's my turn to go get drinks, I'd go to the bar or whatever, and you would just turn around and be like, there he is, And then it was like, okay, all I got to do is get back to Mike with the waters and the drinks and whatever, and then, and the flask was, and only to put it in religious terms, it was his way of having communion with everyone there. That he could share his love for these people through their stories and a swig of tequila or whatever that they might. What was? Apple pie. Oh yeah, sorry, it's been a while. I mean, probably 10 or more years since I had that. But even when we came back, or came to visit, or went to the Star Wars burlesque show, it was the same way. Where it was. He wanted to share those stories with people. He made friends with everyone he ever met, I think, at least that I ever saw, that he could just walk into a room and share their joy in whatever it was that they loved, and they would love him and become immediate friends. And I met more people at Dragon Con that knew Mike than I'd run into somebody and they'd be like, "Oh, the guy with the flask?" And what it's like he just spread love wherever he went there, and yeah, that was what I saw of him in like his purest form. And and he always had his ring. Actually, the Blue Lantern he shared with us, the Darkest Night and Brightest Day series or whatever. Had never read a Green Lantern comic in my life, and then he just went, "Read these," and he handed us this old collection, and then he handed us those, and they were beautiful. It was wonderful work. The fact that he could share and be that steward of those stories, and the people and the stories that people love, just so he could understand people. Anyway, that's all I got.
Tough acts to follow, but I'll try my best. James, thank you so much. Mike, thank you. My brother also got me my job at Wendy's too. So they should have hired him just to hire people. Most of y'all know the adult Mike. I want to tell you about the young Mike. When we were little, he was my first best friend. We played. We played Star Wars, we played Battlestar Galactica. He even played house with me. Flintstones, nothing weird. He was Fred, I was Betty. He played Barbies. For y'all that don't know, The Adventures of Barbie and Bootman Boot man was when he ripped Ken's head off and put a boot on top of it. Needless to say, I was pissed off because he ruined my Kindle. We played in the mud. We played in the forest with Sean. I played with them until I found out there were snakes. Then I was gone. We rode bikes. We did lots of stuff together. In Germany, we had a plum tree that was beside our house. And one day, my parents had always told us we couldn't climb it. Well, we did. We were eating plums in the tree, and we were sitting there and saw my dad's car coming out the driveway. Mike told me, if you sit still, Linda, he won't see us. Two kids sitting in a plum tree, pretty obvious. But Mike was pretty positive he wouldn't see us. Maybe he was just doing it to reassure me that we would not get in trouble. Well, my dad parked the car, got out, proceeded to walk to the garage. I looked at Mike, we gave 2 thumbs up, like, yeah, we did it. Next thing we hear, you two better get out of that tree before your mom sees you. Yes, sir. We got out pretty darn quick, and I don't think my mother was ever told, which we were lucky. Our teenage years, brother and sister, you can imagine, there were some fights, there was some bickering. We still loved each other. But overall, his philosophy was, nobody beats on my sister but me. And believe me, he held people to that standard. I did not date in high school until after he graduated. Who would argue with, at the time, 5'10" lineman, whose nickname was Moose? I was known as Moose's little sister. I had no name in high school. So it didn't matter which high school we went to either. It changed. It always was the same. We went to 3 different high schools. It still was the same thing. The good thing is about this is he was always my backup. If I had an argument with somebody, he was there. If I got in trouble with the parents, he was there. Most of the time, he would try to take the blame for it. He knows I did not like to fly. I was scared of heights. When we were returning from Japan, we were flying into Birmingham. Now, we noticed that the plane, before we took off, it wasn't filled. This was, in the 80s. So he decided, hey, I'm going to get a seat in front of you because there was nobody in it. Who wants to sit with their little sister anyways? Anyways, on the way there, we had a lot of turbulence, pretty bad. The next thing I know, I look in front of me, and there's Mike's hand coming through the seats. And I held his hand. Then the next thing I know, he unbuckled his seat and jumped in the seat beside me, buckled back in. Because he knew I couldn't be alone. I was just scared. But that's what he always did. He was always my backup. He forever still will be my backup. He's just in the cloud now. Later in life, I decided to get married. That protection extended. I'm pretty sure he threatened my husband on our wedding day. He said, if you make her happy, I'll be proud to call you my brother. If you hurt her, beep. I won't finish it. Yeah. Yeah. Boop. He had a way of being a gentle giant and getting his point across. This also extended to my children. For one time, my husband was teasing one of my boys, and Mike was sitting there reading a comic book. He looks up and he goes, do you realize it's only about 6 hours if I drive from Atlanta? He goes, quicker if I fly. So yeah, he was protective. Anyways, I just want to say, make sure that you tell your family, friends, you love them often. Text them, call them, let them know. Because one day, you won't be able to. Mike called me and told me he had weeks to live. I said, I love you. I said, it's okay, we're still gonna fight. He said, I know, but I just want to tell you you're the best sister I could have ever asked for. I said, thank you. I don't feel like I've done enough for you. He goes, you have. He goes, and I love you. And I said, I love you too. We didn't expect him to pass so soon. My last words was, because I had to go back because I had a meeting. And I said to him, I'll be back, I love you, and kissed him on his forehead and gave him a hug. He said, I love you too. If I had known that would have been the last words I would have said to him, I would have said more. But that's just the way it is. So just make sure you hug a little tighter, squeeze a little bigger, text a little more. We all know he loved us. We loved him. It will continue.
So I'm the one that James has to make sure not to tell stories about. I'm Linda's kid, if anyone's curious about that. I mainly have stories that I have been remembering for this entire time. My grandmother mainly remembering of the stories she keeps telling me of when I was like my nephew's age, around 4 or 5. Me and my uncle came out of our rooms at the same time. Mind you, at our grandparents, the rooms are right across from each other. So, 6-foot-tall man, little toddler. All I can remember is looking up and running. I ran to my grandmother and hid behind her. I still remember this. Another story I actually remember from, we went to Disney one time. And again, I'm small, and I'm riding with my uncle a lot. So there would be always scratch marks on him because I'd be hugging him throughout the entire ride or any such. The main one I remember is also from the dinosaur ride, where there's the Carnotaurus coming out at the end that has the photo. Well, there's a picture out there of me not looking and just barreling into my uncle's side, because I can't see the Carnotaurus. Well, there's another that I thought about. I'm losing it, but oh well. Every Christmas, he would get me a Friday the 13th shirt, because that was just our thing. I love Jason Voorhees and all that, the horror series. So I still have those shirts. And then the last shirt I got was, I'm not a hugger, which is the truth. I do not like hugs much. So I keep that close. But also, he went out of his way to get me the DC superhero girls. They're like little Barbies or such. Went out of his way every time a new one released. I get these new ones every, either my birthday or Christmas, alongside that Jason Voorhees shirt. So, I was going through my room one day. I was like going through stuff and like, what do I want to get rid of my old toys and such. I found the bag of all of the toys, and I'm like, oh, I remember these. And my mom reminded me, yeah, those were the ones your uncle got you. I'm like, right, I gotta keep those. So they're still in my closet. I'm gonna probably hang them up on, or not hang them up, put them on my shelf just to put them there. But also growing up, I had the same fondness of Green Lantern. So I always had Green Lantern stuff growing up because he was my favorite superhero before moving on to Superman and Batman. But I always had Green Lantern stuff. We had comic books of the same thing. I tried giving him some comic books. Here he had them. So I kept them. And like coloring books I had, tried giving it to him, already had them. Toys I tried giving him, already had them. Stuffed animals, already had them. My mom made us matching blankets even, and didn't have, he already had that one because he had them. But it was just a lot of stuff that we shared. In the end, when we went through his stuff, I refound some of the toys. I actually did give him a lot of duplicates. But I took them back. I put them back on my shelf. My favorite was the little Kilowog character that he had on his shelf. That immediately went on there. I'm running a blank, so I guess that's all my mind can give me right now. Right, the gumball. So me and my mom loved going shopping, and we went to Dollar Tree. There's a gumball machine, and it just has the Justice League like logos all over it. So I'm like, okay. Hey, there's a Green Lantern. Mom, can I have a quarter? Oh, you're never gonna get that. Mom, look, got the Green Lantern gumball. She's like, first try too. So I was thinking I was gonna get Aquaman because I always remember Big Bang Theory of Aquaman sucks. And because I always got Aquaman for some reason. But So we're like, okay, next time we see him, we're giving him the gumball. Next time we saw him, gave him the gumball. He put that in a bag and put it on his shelf. I thought he wouldn't. He did. I have it now. It's on my shelf now. Yeah. You got anything else to jog a memory, Jeannie? Grandma? You got anything else? Mom? Okay. I'm done.
Good afternoon. I met Mike in 2009 when I was in the process of moving back to Atlanta from out of state. I stayed with him and Ken. They let me sleep on their couch. Sounds like I wasn't the only one. They also let me invade their kitchen because I wanted to cook for them. And as everybody says, Mike was very easy to connect with, and we would see each other at Dragon Con and other events throughout the years. But we really became close during the pandemic. The pandemic was a hard time to be single. And so to make myself feel better, on holidays I would have goodie bags and I would take them around to my single friends. And Mike would pull the lawn chairs out in front of the apartment complex and we would sit out there and talk. And so I have a poem I want to read for you. It's called Dirge Without Music by Edna St. Vincent Millay. I am not resigned to the shutting away of loving hearts in the hard ground. So it is and so it will be, for so it has been, time out of mind. Into the darkness they go, the wise and the lovely. Crowned with lilies and laurel they go, but I am not resigned. Lovers and thinkers, into the earth with you. Be one with the dull, the indiscriminate dust. A fragment of what you felt, of what you knew. A formula, a phrase remains, but the best is lost. The answers quick and keen, the honest look, the laughter, the love, they are gone. They are gone to feed the roses. Elegant and curled is the blossom, fragrant is the blossom, I know, but I do not approve. More precious was the light in your eyes than all the roses in the world. Down, down, down into the darkness of the grave, gently they go, the beautiful, the tender, the kind. Quietly they go, the intelligent, the witty, the brave. I know, but I do not approve, and I am not resigned. Thank you.
For those of you who do not know me, and I'm sure there are a couple, I am the Ken who keeps popping up in these stories. Yes. Yes, I am. So, anybody who knows me knows that we've had, a month since Mike passed? Anybody who knows me knows that I wrote this in the last hour. And to be fair, I wrote one last night too, but I didn't like that one, so I got up this morning and wrote this one. Sat on the deck with my iPad and just did voice to text. So I'm going to try and get through it. We are here today to celebrate the life of Mike Foster, and like a lot of us here, I am overcome with emotions today. Mine seem to primarily be frustration, tinged with just a bit of hurt feelings. Now, I know that doesn't sound right, but just bear with me. For context, let me just say this. I've known Mike for about 30 years. I don't tend to have a lot of really close friends, but he was one of them. We first started hanging out in the late 90s and had a lot of things in common. We both grew up on comic books, movies, watching pro wrestling, and many other similar things. We bonded over shared life experiences such as no money, no girlfriend, and a singular lack of ambition. It was a match, if not necessarily made in heaven, then at the very least made in Metropolis. Mike fit in very well with my circle of friends. I've always referred to us as the broken bunch. We have something wrong with us all. We have the introvert, the one who actively hates people, the self-centered one, and later on, the James. And somehow all of that came together and worked. Now, I told you I was doing this voice to text, which I was, and I was sitting on the deck and wasn't paying attention. And my dog, Grace, for those of you who know her, came out and decided to bark at nothing. I'm sure it was some great threat in her mind, but to me it looked and felt like nothing. But I ignored her until I looked down and I noticed that the iPad was transcribing what she was barking. So now I have a long line of help, 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 help. I specifically left that in there so that I would remember to tell that story. I did not know my iPad spoke dog. Isn't it? But it still messes everything up. I haven't even edited this, so I know I'm going to stumble over some stuff. Oh, Grace. I lived with Mike for 2 years, from 2008 until 2010. I would probably still have been living with him today if my wife, Robin, hadn't shown up and informed me that the married portion of my life was about to commence, but it wasn't going to do so living in that small 2-story condominium with Mike. But despite the fact that Mike was being deprived of my company, he fell in love with Robin as much as I did, and they became very close. He always referred to himself as the first applicant to replace me should anything happen. Presumably to me. Which made me kind of nervous those first few years, to be honest. Help, 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 help. I think we finally put her away after that. Those 2 years living with Mike, I think back upon fondly. We had a lot of fun, and well, you know how they say if you do something 10,000 times, you're an expert in it, right? Right? By the time I moved out, I was an expert in conversations about anything comic book related, with a minor in Green Lantern lore specifically. I got a lot from Mike. Many years of fun memories of parties and role-playing sessions and countless discussions about countless things. Mike could always be counted on to come over and watch a movie or go do something if you needed it or wanted it. He was the kind of guy that, after being at a party for a very long evening and driving home and preparing for bed, would then turn around, get out of bed, get in his car at 1:30 in the morning and come take you to the hospital because your dog had broken 3 of your fingers and your wife was out of town and your 14-year-old nephew was with you so he couldn't drive and you didn't want to risk driving to the hospital one-handed with him in the car. I know that sounds extremely specific, but trust me, he was that kind of guy. I got a lot out of my friendship with Mike over the years. I met and got to know his, well, more recently than previously, his wonderful, amazing family, who, you know, Robin and I have both come to love as much as our own. Yeah. And, well, goodness. And our little broken group got a James. You're welcome. Yeah, James took some getting used to at first, and it took some time, but he's one of us now. And the bonus that comes with that is actually as much fun as James is, and as much as we've grown to like him. His family's just so much better. Right? I mean, right? Your wife, your kids, I love those guys.
They said if I get divorced, I'm the one that gets excommunicated.
I believe it. I believe it. And Anne, I could write a book about how great Anne is. She's just a wonderful person. I can understand now why Mike was so, you know, head over heels for you. Boy, he was pissed when you married him, Mike.
Actually, it was when you he told me about later. That was like, oh yeah.
I warned you, don't get next to
It was walking next to the road, and then way at the top of the hotel, the big dragon kind of. And he's like, lean over and take a look, and I'm like, oh yeah, really? And then about halfway through leaning over, I'm like, wait a minute. But he didn't give you a little push. He didn't.
Well, obviously, we're all here today for the same reason. Things went the way that they did, and that brings me to the crux of my frustration that I mentioned when I started all of this. You see, I thought for sure, by now, we said it's been a month, right? I thought for sure by now Mike would be actively haunting me. And I tell you, I'm a little disappointed. I thought that I was going to wake up in the middle of the night, look at the foot of the bed, and see him standing there looking at me, and then immediately bursting into that insane grin of his that he used anytime anybody glanced at him. If you glanced at him, he'd look at you and go. Linda also does this. I thought for sure by now that there would be messages scrolled by a ghostly finger into a mist-covered shower window berating me for not having drawn him his pictures yet. I thought that my entire comic book collection, all the boxes would be stacked at the ceiling or something by now. We always talked about how he would haunt me, and now here I am, left alone, jilted at the altar. But I think I understand. It's likely there was some sort of paperwork involved. Forms to be filled out to get your poltergeist license or something. And I'm also sure Mike intends to get those done, assuming he can find them again, just as soon as he's done talking to all the comic book creators who created the stories that he loved so much his entire life that have gone before him. Just as soon as he drains all the stories out of all the ghosts, of all the actors who have been in movies and TV shows that he's loved over the years, just as soon as. You know what? By the time he gets done with all that, I'll probably just see him again myself. Something to look forward to.
Hi, I'm Sean. About a third to a half of this audience are veterans of IntelliTeach, and I know that more than a couple of us probably have some things to say and some memories to share. I did the math, and I knew Mike for about over 20 years. I was one of his trainers when he got hired at the Teach. He was always incredibly bright, caught on quick. We all know it's trial by fire there, but he did well. And we had a weird orbit around each other for a while. He was my boss, he was my team lead, I was his team lead on special team, and back and forth for a bit. Until I left the Teach, and eventually I said, get the hell out of there. We have an opening, come be any place better. And he took me up on it, and we were again coworkers. We were coworkers under Josh, who's also here, and that entire time, as we all know, he was just a big, giant ball of energy and friendliness and geekiness, and I never wanted to be here, and I don't think any of us wanted to be here, but we'll all remember him, and we'll miss him terribly. And I thank you for your time.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is CJ. Also a fellow veteran warrior of the Teach. along with Michael, and a lot of familiar faces in here. A little more difficult standing up here. I met Mike when I first started at the Teach, and I don't even know why he gravitated towards me, but he came over and did the signature grin that that gentleman mentioned, and was having a particularly rough day on the job at that time, but we bonded together over a lot of things that we share: comics, games, things of that nature. And throughout the years there, he would always make it a point to come scoot over to my desk during his break and would just hover for a moment before saying something. He would just grin. It was the craziest thing. And it honestly made my day every time I saw him and got to speak with him and nerd out about just anything he could think of. The man could talk. He could talk for a while. And the energy he gave made you want to listen and soak in his passion for whatever he spoke about. We would do that at work. Times we would hang out outside of work. Didn't matter. The energy he brought to the room was always something that made you feel like everything was going to be okay, despite whatever you may have been going through at the time. And I really am grateful to have made such a wonderful friend. And while I do wish we did get to hang out a lot more often, the times that we did hang out were amazing. And I've never been much of a conversationalist. I don't speak a lot. I do like to listen, so we work perfectly together. So, yeah. And yeah, don't even get me started on Dragon Con. We both attended those many years, and we'll make it a point to always go and find this man. Calling somebody on your phone is not happening at Dragon Con. You have to go look for where they are, get lucky. But every time we met up, it was always a good time. All we did was just chat it up, drink it up, and just enjoy life in the moment. And I'd like to think that's what Foster was all about. Whoever he happened to be around, he made sure that you were in a safe spot. And, wanted you to bring the best out of yourself. He was a very encouraging guy, even in the times where, I was having rough spots. He just kind of knew. And he would just say everything, would be okay. And I wish he got to bring more of that light to the world for many more years to come. But I'm going to miss him. And I'd like to tell him today that we're all going to be okay. But yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lilith, or Lily. Uncle Mike was one of my uncles, and I basically knew him almost my entire life. And he did heavily affect my life, even if not directly, as my dad was one of his best friends. My Uncle Stan is one of his best friends. And there are a few pictures up here, but when I was younger, I really did look up to him. and I still do. And I really wish that I had put in more time to get to know him, especially now because I have a deep love for comics. And, you know, I have a lot of regret because I wish that I had developed my love for comics a lot sooner. The last time I saw him, I really wanted to know more about him and listen to his stories that people have now been sharing. And I just feel so bad because he was so tired and like I really wish I had just truly taken the time to get to know him, because I knew that he cared about me, and I cared about him, and I still care about him. And, you know, hearing that he had died, it was almost that, like, something my brain just stopped, because I had never expected to really hear that. It was just never something that really seemed to be a reality to me, that one day my mom would just come up to me and just tell me, hey, Uncle Mike passed away. And just sitting here and being here, it makes me realize how much I do miss him. And I wish I had gotten a little more time with him. And it's just so meaningful to see how much of a positive effect he had on basically everybody in his life. And I hope his memory will continue to live on. At least I'm gonna try and keep his legacy going at Dragon Con. And this is gonna be my first year being 18 and being able to do all the Dragon Con stuff out of my ring. But, you know, sitting here, I'd always really looked forward to being able for him to be there for the first time that I truly got to experience Dragon Con. And I hope that at least his presence will be able to follow me there when I'm there this time. Thank you.
I also fought in the fields of IntelliTeach with Foster. I don't really have a lot to say. I just wanted to talk about the last time. Oh, God. Okay. We got together to celebrate him. I want to say last June, May, something like that. And we took pictures together, and I think I called Verlon like 10 p.m. a week ago, like, hey, do you have those pictures? I think they're all on his phone. And so I know that they're somewhere, and I think about that a lot. I went through and looked at, I had like one or two that I had taken in like 2013, question mark. But it had been some time since I had seen him. And one of the things about him is that it didn't matter how much time passed. You always, whenever you met up with him, it's like you're in the middle. You always pick up where you left off, the conversation with him. And we were talking about going to Dragon Con last year. March was hard because we lost another friend. Who was supposed to go. So hopefully, to the niece who talked about going to first year, I have been threatening to go for X number of years. So hopefully I'll see you guys there. And I don't know who's coordinating that, but I do remember when he upgraded to the giant flask. Because Angelicis was at Peachtree Center downtown, and so he would just show up with whatever he was going to have for when he started his Dragon Con-a-thon. And I remember seeing that for the first time. So I just want to say I agree with the sentiment to just hug people tighter. And I'm glad that I did get to tell him I love him, and I'm glad that somewhere in cyberspace, those images are there. So, thank you.
Hi, I am Simon. I got to meet James first in the 7th grade, and I'll save it for my mom's funeral, where he has to talk about my red shorts. That's a whole different story. I was trying to remember, we were talking on my write-up yesterday. I was trying to figure out the timeline of when I actually met Mike, and now that you said the 4 years, the Air Force brats, it makes sense to me. I met him when he worked at Food World with Mike. I'm going to try to shorten it. This is a big, long story. But, and I'm doing this because you spoke at my parents' funeral. Yeah. But, Jolt, if you knew Mike, Food World, Jolt, his S10, and never ask him for a ride because you have to move over everything out of his passenger seat. That went on with his Geo Metro when he moved to Atlanta. Just got to move it to the side. I'll get to it later. After James came to Atlanta, me and Mike became really close. He had me going to TBS, met Rose. He got me into a lot of comic books. And he encouraged me, anything that I seemed interested, I should try to read. Like Hellboy. Hellboy became one of my favorites because Mike was like, just go read anything. Read this. He would show me different artwork. But if I wanted to know anything Marvel, DC related, especially DC, Mike, tell me about this. Many conversations. Tell me about this Darkest Nights. I don't know. I'd sit there for hours and I'd listen to him. I told my son, because Mike came to visit us a year or two ago. He went to Pensacon. I don't think James was able to go that year. But he made sure to come to my house. He gave me a hug, and I told my son, I was like, this is who, every time you have a question, this is who you ask. You ask Mike. Mike will tell you anything. But when James moved to Atlanta, me and Mike became really close. Bulletin board systems were the big rage. And we had FOB, we had Friends of Bulletin Boards, where it was from the 18-year-olds graduating high school to the 50-year-olds who was running the bulletin boards. And we would have a weekly meeting at a place called Fazoli's, and we would eat pasta and the breadsticks. And he was always a big brother to the younger generation. He was like, if there's anybody older, he would make sure. And I kind of would watch him, and I would follow. It was like, that's, you could see when people would take advantage of situations, and Mike always would step in. And online, his screen name was Surreal, Sirreal, and his number was it 211 or were you 211?
I was 211 and he stole it.
But
somebody took over 187 also.
Yeah, that wasn't me. I was 242. Well, we had to have your number assigned and everything for your logins. But his little avatar was a knight in shining armor. And that's what he was. He was always looking out for people. He never thought about himself. When he moved up to Atlanta, him and James began their quest to try to get me to move to Atlanta. My parents were going through, when I moved out of my house, my parents had their issues. I had to move back in, take over their mortgage, take care of them. So every year I was like, I can't come this year. But Mike was like, I'll tell you what, if you come up here, you can crash my place. He had a one-bedroom apartment. I guess that was after you were, he had a one-bedroom apartment. He's like, you can crash on my couch. So I'm part of the cash crowd. Yeah. But his deal was, because my birthday was in June, he's like, I'll tell you what, I will buy you because at the time it was a 3-day pass. He goes, it was like 20-something bucks. It was really cheap. It was like 95, 96. And he was like, tell you what, you get up here, and I said, okay, I'll get up there, but I'm paying for your food. If we're going there, and so we would take I don't know exactly where the apartment was, but we'd take the metro, the underground. MARTA, thank you. Because it's SMARTA. And so we would roll over there, ride the train in, get off at 5 Points, I think. Peachtree Center, and then walk over. And I think we did this for between 6 and 8 years. I've got a whole bunch of Dragon Cons, but he introduced me to so many people because he could talk to so many people. I remember one year he introduced me to Richard Hatch from Battlestar Galactica. And he was so happy because Richard had released one book, I think the year, somewhere in between, and he'd got, if you went to this VIP thing, you get it signed. And he numbered them. And Richard gave him the number 1 because he was the first in line. And so we went to DragonCon to meet him, and Richard looks at me, and they were talking, and I was like, you know, Richard? He goes, yeah, we met, like, he'll tell the whole story about him and Richard, because Richard's love for Battlestar Galactica was like Michael's love for Green Lantern. And he looks at Mike, he goes, what number you got? And Mike had his other book, he flips it over, I got number 1. He goes, you get number 1 again. He wrote the number 1, he'd sign it. So I think there's 3 books, there was 3 books. And I just remember that we would go back, and like he introduced me to Peter David, because he would sit there and talk Incredible Hulk, and I think Peter David took over Aquaman when he got the harpoon for a hand and stuff like that. There was writers and artists, and Mike would just sit there and talk to them like he was like it was amazing to watch, to experience, to see. I think it was, I met my wife in 2004. So I think it was 2003 or 2002 was the last time I was able to come up there. And then me and my wife would always be like, we're going to go next year. We're going to go next. And everything would always step in the way, you know. And you can hear all of these stories from all these people. And every single person, if you spent 5 minutes, like, if you spend 5 minutes with them, you love them, just because there was nothing. You meet so many people in life who aren't really who they seem they are. He was 100% who he was, period, all the time. There was no game. There was no anger ever. I don't think I've ever seen him angry. James. I know. There are people, never mind. I'm not going to go there. It's like I love when James brings up stories, because I don't remember them, but as soon as James starts sharing it clicks right back in to my little filing cabinet. But he called me he passed on Monday. The week before he got the final he had just got a diagnosis, I think it's at 6 to 8 weeks. And he called me after you texted me. And I didn't have the heart to say, James texted me. I was just like, I let him talk. And he's like, I love you. I was like, I love you too. And I said, I had to go to Chico with my wife to see her dad. And I said, as soon as we get back, I'm coming up there. And I get back on Sunday. Monday morning, James texts me. And the only word I could say was, and everybody at my work, they're like looking at me like I'm strange. I was like, sorry, I'm having a moment. But like Linda says, always tell your friends, your family that you love them, because you don't know.